reflect on that. What might be messages that particularly, to present themselves as a female leader, that they put in those stories that they tell to you and over your shoulder to a wider audience?
Okay. I found on one occasion about reciting Quran Surah Yusuf. She explained to the audiences why these verses or this surah should be read during that kind of occasion in the 4th month pregnancy rituals. And then she explained based on her understanding and also her
Was a cultural psychologist. If I'm not mistaken, but please correct me if I'm wrong, in the case study that you studied, the female leaders themselves were not necessarily newcomers to the cultural context in which they operate, but
opponent. So I consider this approach to analyze my findings because NU, through the LBM NU in East Java, they made a decision regarding this acculturation concept. So the decision was because when Islam meets local culture, the NU organization divide there are some strategies. The first strategy is adaptation, and the second strategy is neutralization. They say that if there is a haram part in the culture, in Javanese culture, then the custom should be neutralized. So the haram part should be neutralized, and also the practice of maybe Javanese rituals should be Islamized. And the third strategy is reduction. So if the haram part cannot be neutralized, it should be reduced. And the last is amputation. If the haram part cannot be reduced, then it should be rejected. So based on their decision on how local culture made Islam, I tried to look at this phenomena using acculturation theory. And also the Muhammadiyah organization, although they did not explicitly say about it, but when I did my interview, for example, the the Majelis Tarjih and Tajdid representative, he said that
formulate or devise strategies to deal with cultural practices that they are recessive.
Thank you. Dear Farah, congratulations, esteemed candidate. Congratulations on reaching this wonderful milestone. And because I understand that you faced quite some adversity, and yet you managed to keep going. You finished your research and the writing. Always smooth. And I hope actually that while you went through your own adversities that you participated in. I have a few questions for you today. And the first one is that, and I have to get my computer a bit closer now. You observed rightly that, those are quite well known. Muhammadiyah members. However, when discussing your work on Muslimat and you discuss these rituals at great length, while you do not have something to compare them with in the Aishia circles. So could you explain on what basis you decided to include in your materials the rituals that Aishia frowns upon? Length at the NO rituals that do not have an equivalent in the Aishia circles? And what do these specific practices tell you about the larger topic of women's authority and agency in the context of reciting the Quran in the life cycle and on the occasion of calendrical and occasional rituals? So is it a form of agency and ritual or authority when women refuse to perform certain rituals? Or do they do that because they follow the Majlis Tarjih decision from their organization? Or are there occasions where actually forbidden rituals are, that the women are somehow participating in them without the organization knowing, Because as a second part of my question, I just wonder how much women did who belong to Muhammadiyah that would not be condoned by the leadership of their organization, and how they negotiated these activities while in the field. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, highly esteemed opponent. So I think by taking the Asia community in Jombang as one of example of my research here, I could I could see more clearly about the field of Muhammadiyah organization, which is dynamic and also changing, and also I can see clearly that the habitus of the of the Asia communities in Jombang is different with the habitus of the Asia community in Bantul. So without taking the Asia or considering this community as an example for my study, I cannot reach the conclusion that there are various habitus within the Muhammadiyah organization related to ritual practices, especially that there are so many maybe different habitus, and also I conclude that the habitus of the Asia organization or Asia communities in Jombang is influenced by the habitus of the female religious authority in that city, because I followed her and I tried to interview and try to understand what is her thought on ritual practice and how it was done among the Asia communities in Jombang. And for the second question related to agency, I think that authority and also agency, as I indicated in the PhD thesis, that these 4 women, they were recognized as religious authority figures, and based on my fieldwork, I conclude that this recognition is because they have some capital which is in accordance with the capital of Muhammadiyah organization in Jombang or in Bantul, and also because the habitus of this female religious authority in Jombang is in accordance with the habitus of the Muhammadiyah organization or the Asia organization in Jombang, as well as the female religious authority in Bantul, with the local context of Muhammadiyah or Aisyah in Bantul. And also, I think that when they reject this practice, for example, Bu Amri, the female religious authority figures in Jombang, she rejected the practice of some Javanese rituals, and she did not want to accommodate some ritual practices because I think because she did understand some Islamic texts, and also she said that she was convinced by the decision of the Muhammadiyah organization, the old decision of the Muhammadiyah organization before the concept of dakwah cultural was established. They have some resources to understand Islamic texts, and they were aware of this capability, and they tried to implement, and they tried to take action. So I think this is what agency means.
So are you saying that what she was doing was reject the new idea of dakwah cultural?
Yes.
That she did not want to engage in that. She felt that it was not proper.
Yes. Actually, I think there are some opinions related to, for example, women's authority within the Muhammadiyah organization. So some scholars, I think they agree they agree that inviting one or some Aisyah members to be the board members of the Muhammadiyah is all right, but some of them did not agree. And I think what she did by rejecting what the Muhammadiyah organization decided, the central Muhammadiyah organization decided, it is also part of her choice. But I think in Jombang, the local context in Jombang, also I did interview with the representative of Muhammadiyah in Jombang, and also the Majelis Tarjih and Tajid at the provincial level and the regency level in Jombang. All of them agree that what is that? Practicing the old decision of Muhammadiyah organization is better. This is for them.
Okay. I hope you're satisfied with the answers, because I would like to move on to the next committee member, Professor van der One. Yes?
Yes, well, there's a lot to say, but for now I'm satisfied.
Thank you very much. You can always continue the discussion later in your own time. I would like to invite, as the last member of the committee, Professor Post, to ask his questions and to contribute to the discussion.
Thank you. Esteemed candidate, you present us and defend a rich book. And at the first glance, it seems a rather focused project. But when you realize that when it comes to ritual, the Quran and the meal, the festive meal, the Ramadan, is, I think, nearly omnipresent in Indonesia, then you encompass, in fact, a very rich, complex and comprehensive study. I have two questions. My first question is about your theoretical framework. And I must say that you have not been lazy or reluctant in that respect. There are two key figures in your theoretical reflections that are Catherine Bell and Pierre Bourdieu. And particularly when it comes to your deployment of the fields and the forms of capital of Bourdieu, I have reservations that I would like to discuss with you. Precisely, Bourdieu's tracing of various fields and forms of capital have long been criticized. Aren't these distinctions far too static? Do they reflect modern reality or postmodern reality? And haven't we just now entered a time where these fields and these capitals merge totally? People are for instance, Appadurai, the famous Indian anthropologist, comes up with scapes, but not to outline and describe them in the tradition of Bourdieu, but rather to let them flow into each other in the current global and digital world. We live in the flow of technoscapes, financescapes, ideoscapes, and mediascapes, he says. And I still see Bourdieu used in current studies of culture and religion and ritual, but to indicate what has changed. Working with fixed cultural fields and fixed forms of capital is no longer tenable in current digital and global settings. So I'm no Indonesia expert, but I sense how modern Indonesia is also influenced deeply by those flows. The question then is whether those fields and capitals of Bourdieu
in the dissertation, I mentioned that just field also the habit in the hand of organization. I think it is Islamic fields in Indonesian I see. But I think using Bourdieu's concept of theory or his theory of practice in general, including his concepts of capital and also habitus and also fields, I still can develop this concept, and it is useful for understanding Islamic fields in Indonesia. And as Bourdieu himself said that a field is changing, also the habitus. And when the field, as you mentioned, is influenced by globalization, I think this concept is still can be used, because he himself said that a field habitus and also capital. And also when I say here, Muslim woman may be recognized as religious authority figure, he must have some capitals, which is symbolic capital. And this symbolic capital, I think it may be changed due to a particular context. For example, in the Muhammadiyah organization, the symbolic capital of Islamic religious authority is knowing, having a piety, for example, and they can understand Arabic language or some English language. But in the case of NU organization, those who or traditional or local Islamic books, they are recognized as Islamic religious authority figure. So the organization are different, although the concept of capital itself is what is considered as symbolic capital, also maybe due to the globalization.
Thank you. But changing fields and changing Bourdieu himself is one thing, but culture, globalized, digitalized, with flows is another thing. So it's not only about changing, but it's a totally new situation. And when you use these fields and these capitals of Bourdieu, so you said perhaps the religious field of Bourdieu is too Catholic. So of course you can discuss that, but when you still use these concepts of fields and capital in a in my opinion, perhaps dangerous. Do you agree with that, or you still to analyze the situation of women?
Okay, as he said himself that using this concept cannot write without conduct. I think because there is a dynamic and there is a changing, or maybe you said a flow, we have to look at his concept also. But Ruday, for example, I think I might consider his concept to analyze related to in the Indonesian context.
Thank you. I hope I have still time for another question, a more basic question, a very practical question. So I was very interested in your project on reciting the Quran, and I hear a lot about the functions of reciting the Quran, but I was I'm an expert in ritual studies. Is it spoken word? Is it religious speech? So I'm interested in the act of the performance that is really happening at a specific. Is there a specific form of performance for specific domains? Is it perhaps silent meditation at home and spoken words in groups? Perhaps is there a dichotomy with at the one hand reading and studying, and on the other hand ritual incantation of the Quran? And I wonder, are there implications for the functions you mentioned? In the last element, is there a special women way of reciting? Are there specific trajectories of reciting that are directly related to what you name female agency and authority? Can you say something more about that?
Stop, otherwise you don't get an answer.
Thank you for your question, highly esteemed opponent. Yes, it is spoken, and in some cases, reciting the Quran, reading the Quran could be just read and understand the meaning of the verses and interpret. And also, sometimes, as in my case,
the session is adjourned for deliberation. Please await the return of the committee.
Prize.
Dear candidate, the doctorate board of Tilburg University has taken note of your dissertation. Having heard your defense, the doctorate board has decided to confer on you the doctoral degree. Professor Heindels is authorized to invest you with this dignity.
It gives me great pleasure to accept the task assigned to me by the Rector Magnificus of the university by virtue of the authority granted to us by the law and by regulations of the with the university's seal of approval. Congratulations.
I perform a pleasant task, learned madam, in congratulating you on behalf of the Tilburg University Doctorate Board with the dignity acquired. I would like to give the floor now to the supervisor for the pronunciation of his laudatio. Please be seated.
Well-learned Madam, highly esteemed Dr. Izza, dear Farah, congratulations with your earning of the title of doctor. It is an honor for me, also on behalf of my colleague, Professor Odile Heinders, to be the first one who is allowed to address you in your just obtained dignity. We are also convinced that Dr. Albertina Nuchtere, who was your co-promoter, but who sadly passed away last year, would have been very proud and happy seeing you standing here after your defense. Dr. Nuchteren was indeed, as you mentioned in your acknowledgement, a caring, careful, and critical mentor of your research. Your research is a fine study of the subtle way Muslim women know to obtain religious authority in a patriarchal society. In your case, you were focusing on Aishia and Muslimat and the female communities of the two largest Muslim organizations in the world, the so-called modernist Muhammadiyah movement and the traditionalist Nahdlatul Ulama, both from Indonesia. To underpin your view, you limited yourself to the role female leaders of these two communities play through Quran recitation practices during life cycles, calendrical and occasional rituals. Besides, you added a kind of double comparative approach, namely modernist versus traditionalist, and the city of Bantu, a Muhammadiyya bulwark, versus the city of Jombang, a Nahdlatul Ulama stronghold. By dealing in this way with the topic of your research, you were able to show the importance and influence of locality and the social historical context. By way of participant observation during your fieldwork, you managed to gain the trust of both the female religious leaders of the Aishia and Muslimat NU in Bantu and Jombang, and of the ordinary female members of these two communities in these places. Thus, they became key informants who introduced you to the local customs, habits, and others, especially in the field of rituals. They made clear to you that performing rituals could play a key role in acquiring religious authority, especially by integrating practices not considered to be pure Islamic, but remnants from the non-Islamic Javanese past into Islamic rituals by Islamizing them through Quranic recitation. This practice was not uncommon in Nahdlatul Ulama until this organization adhered to the principle of Da'wah Cultural. Your study makes clear that our Shia leaders in Bantul and Jombang were dealing differently with this principle due to the different social and historical circumstances. Your examples of the way the female religious leaders of the Aishia and Muslimat NU are dealing with Islamic and non-Islamic rituals highlighted the fact that Indonesian Muslims often struggle with the definition of religion methodology is concerned, which is characteristic of you. As a PhD student, you were the one who took the initiative to organize Zoom meetings of the Indonesian PhDs on a regular basis to stay in contact with each other, but above all, to help each other to continue the progress of his or her research. In these meetings, you had a sharp eye for the methodological and theoretical problems of the research of your peers. In addition, you were also the one taking care of the social well-being of the Indonesian PhDs by presenting your peers and supervisors every now and then with delicious meals, thus creating a feeling of togetherness or communitas. At the end of this laudation, Professor Odile Heinders and I would like to thank the members of your committee, Professors Buitelaar, Van Doornharder, Kaptein and Post, who were willing to assess your manuscript and who, with their critical remarks, gave you the opportunity to improve your work. We are sure that a commercial edition of your PhD thesis will greatly benefit from their comments. However, for now, you and your family should enjoy the milestone of your earning of the doctorate. Finally, dear Dr. Farah Izza, it was an honor and delight for us to be your supervisors. You were an open-minded, diligent, and hard-working PhD student who was willing to carefully consider our criticism, but also dared to take her own position. UIN Kiai Haji Saifuddin Sohri Purwokerto, can be proud to have you as one of its teachers and researchers. Professor Heinders and I wish you, together with your family, happiness, healthiness, success, and all the best for the future.
This brings us to the end of this academic session. On behalf of the Doctorate Board of Tilburg University, I would like to thank the committee members here and on Zoom for their participation. I would like to give the committee members on Zoom the opportunity to congratulate the young doctor. Professor Buitelaar. You are mute.
Right. Dear Farah, dear Dr. Farah Izza, congratulations with this wonderful success, this milestone. And again, thank you so much for taking us to Indonesia and learn so much more about the organizations and the female leaders involved in them that you taught us about. All the best for your future career. And as Herman Beck said, also all the best for you in terms of health and well-being, and for you and your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor van Doorn-Harder.
Yeah, Dr. Farah Izza, congratulations. We are all very proud of you, and we wish you all the best as you start your career as a doctora in UIN Purwokerto. And we hope that we will meet in the future and maybe go and listen to Quran's recitations in Jombang or in Bantu, unless you're already tired of those and have found another field. But we are also very much looking forward to the book that you will certainly produce based on this work. And of course, all the best with your family, with your work, and with everything that you are going to do in future.
Thank you very much. I would invite the committee members on Zoom to stay with us until we have left the auditorium. May I ask the guests in the auditorium to leave the room after the cortege. I now close this session. May I invite you to stand up, please, and keep your caps off. May our search be instilled with gratitude. May mercy be our guide, and may love go before us. The session is closed.